Hi, my friends. Welcome to Deep Six, the Deep State. You know, I do this every single day, and you can catch it anytime you want. It's up for millennia, but you can easily get it for 24 hours after I do it. If you want to get it hot off the press, like now, I do it at 4 o'clock every weekday. And I've been getting a large audience. Yesterday we had 31,000 people who watched it live. And then, what are we up to from views? I think over 100. It was 87 last night. Very impressive, and I really thank you. It's quite flattering to me to know that you care. Now, what Hillary taught Harvey, that's what we'll start with. As you may recall, the thing that ultimately led me to break with Hillary Clinton was when I learned that she had hired a fleet of what Eileen and I called secret agents, secret police, to track down women who had been involved with Bill, not to discipline him, not to divorce him, not to punish him, but to warn them against going public with their allegations. And what the detectives did was they sometimes helped negotiate lucrative deals for them with record companies and movies and such. Sometimes they developed blackmail material, abortions, bankruptcy, abuse, and in any case cowed them or cajoled them into silence. And it was the first time that had ever happened in politics, and it was an extraordinary creation of hers. It was overseen by a friend of mine, Betsy Wright. At one point after the election, Eileen and I were on the phone with Betsy, and Eileen said, "Where are you storing these documents?" And she said, "They're safe." And I said, "Why don't you put them in a safe deposit box?" And she giggled, and she said, "Safe deposit box? A warehouse is more like it." And those were the files to intimidate women. Then Hillary kept on her M.O., and when she ran for president this time, she had her campaign spend at least $200,000, no, actually $1 million, to Fusion, to conduct negative research on Trump, again using a law firm as the cutout, in this case Perkins Cole, the Obama law firm in Chicago, and again to dig up material to smear Donald Trump and to invent this entire narrative of collusion with the Russians. It's a fantasy, but she invented it to try to force Trump into a negative position. Well, that's just what Harvey Weinstein did. Harvey, who's very close to the Clintons, I believe at one point they even rented a house from him for a vacation. But in any case, they're always with him at parties and events, and he contributed to the foundation, the campaigns, and everything else. And Harvey, it turns out now, hired his own investigators through the law from David Boies, the famous Democratic lawyer who represented Al Gore in Bush v. Gore. And Boies hired a fleet of private detectives just like Hillary did. In this case, they were slightly higher grade. Some were former Mossad agents, others professionals from other intelligence services. And their job, like Hillary's detectives, was to root around and find any woman who Weinstein had harassed sexually, to make sure they wouldn't talk, and to browbeat and coerce them and bribe them and threaten them and sometimes pay them off to be silent. And they ran around the country, or the world, I guess, hunting down, cleaning up Harvey's trash. Well, he learned that from Hillary, Harvey and Hillary. You know, it took a lot of detectives in each case. Actually, it took a village. But it was effective in both cases. New Yorker magazine today reveals that. An article by a guy named Farrow, I forget his first name, but he's Mia Farrow's son. And he did a wonderful... Ronan, I believe. Ronan? I believe it's Ronan. He did a wonderful job of exposing this. And it's about time it's been exposed, and I'm just thrilled that it has been. But the similarity in MOs is absolutely astonishing. In each case, it was to cover up sexual harassment. In each case, it involved tracking down the women and finding them. In each case, bribing and browbeating them into silence. In each case, it was done through a law firm, so it would be protected by attorney-client privilege, and nobody could tell what they were doing. And in each case, it was done secretly. And in each case, it was to cover up horrific personal conduct. Hillary covering up Bill's, and Harvey Weinstein covering up his own. This is very, very dangerous. And if this trend of secret investigators catches on, this could really undermine politics in the United States and leave it to Hillary to carry it to the nth degree with this trumped-up allegations against Trump. When the story first broke about this dossier, and then it turned out that Hillary paid for it, Eileen and I just looked at each other and said, it's the same damn thing she did in 1992. She's just repeating it. And now to find out that Harvey Weinstein did the same thing, undoubtedly learning it from Hillary's example, that is really something. Now there's... yes, I'm sorry.
We have a question from Ken Roberts. He asks, who paid for Papadopoulos and Page trips to Russia, etc., airline, hotels, and meals? Do you know?
I do not know. Okay. I do not know. I would imagine Carter Page paid for his own because he worked for Merrill Lynch as their rep in Russia. But I do not know. Now, there is another element here that's emerging in this scandal, this ever-widening scandal. In other countries, it is fairly common for corrupt politicians to buy newspapermen, journalists, to pay them off, to have them literally on their retainer, and they pay them bribes for what?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you wanted to go to break.
And they pay them bribes for favorable news coverage or for derogatory news coverage on their opponent. And so far, that seems not to have spread to the United States. But my suspicions and others were roused by the fact that the Perkins coal firm paid Fusion a little over $1 million. And Fusion paid Steele $160,000. So what happened to the other $800,000? And there is a lot of speculation that they used it to pay off journalists to spread the story of Donald Trump colluding with Putin by bribing them to do that. And the evidence that we have is that Perkins Coal will not release its financial records, will not tell the court what it spent its money on, where the rest of that $1 million went. And Fusion GPS and the House Intelligence Committee have been wrangling over subpoenas for the Trump dossier firm's bank accounts. Lawyers for Fusion submitted a new request for a temporary restraining order preventing its bank, TD Bank, from producing records requested by the House panel regarding records of transactions with any law firm, media company, or journalist with which it has worked. And they're fighting that subpoena. Could it be possible that this entire range of stuff that I write about in Rogue Spooks, this entire rumor and charge of collusion, could have been spread by bribes given to journalists to cover it? Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Now, Carter Page came before the House committee and testified for 8 hours about his various trips to Russia and his various meetings with Russian officials. Well, that's fine, and I'm glad that he did testify. But let's remember who Carter Page is. He's a guy who worked in Russia for Merrill Lynch, I believe, in charge of their operations in Russia, and he was a Trump supporter, but that's it. He never advised Trump. He was never part of the Trump campaign. And when he went around giving speeches predicting that if Trump was elected, sanctions would be lifted, they haven't been, they've been redoubled and extended, he was warned by the Trump campaign to stop it. And they sent him a letter saying, you are not an advisor to the Donald Trump campaign. Mr. Trump has never met you, he doesn't know you, and he's never talked to you, so stop representing yourself as an advisor to Donald Trump. And yet, despite that, it's considered so relevant that Carter Page went to Russia a lot. Well, he was based there, and that he met with Kremlin officials. That was part of his job. To say that this represented Trump colluding with the Kremlin when they explicitly said that he was not their guy is really something. Now, they got Carter Page's name from the dossier, which IDs him for the first time and outs him in that sense. but scarcely, there is no credibility to that. Yes.
Dick, Darlene Meyer Rubin wants to know, do you think the Clintons have threatened Sessions too?
No.
And several people, there's about 4 of them on here, they wanted to know why you're no longer working for Bill Clinton.
Oh, would you? Well, look, technically and actually, I'm not working for him because he can't run for president again. And my
but
job
they want to know why you quit.
is to help people get elected. And I didn't quit Bill Clinton. He fired me, but after I had really helped him get reelected. And even though I was officially fired, I continued to be an off-the-shelf advisor during the Lewinsky scandal, advising him to tell the truth, which he did not. My objection is not to Bill, it's to Hillary. In fact, I'm increasingly ashamed that Bill's record as president is being undermined by Hillary's horrible record as a candidate. And maybe the only thing people will remember is Hillary, not Bill, whereas Bill did a fine job as president, and I'm proud of what I did for him. Not only did I help him get elected, but I helped get welfare reform passed. I helped get the balanced budget passed. I helped raise the minimum wage. I helped revise the immigration laws. I helped initiate the whole anti-smoking campaign, anti-teen smoking, after it was dormant for a long time. So I did really proud of that. And I think Bill Clinton's to be commended for pushing that stuff. But I didn't sign on to work for Hillary.
And Jeff Harris wants to know, do you think Hillary will go to prison?
I can't tell that. I do think there'll be an investigation, and I do think the investigation will be conducted by a special prosecutor. And looking over that horizon is a difficult thing to do. So give me a few seconds. We're going to have a commercial message, I think, and then be back in 15 seconds, and then we'll talk about the incredible recovery of this economy. Hi. Thanks for sticking around. The Pew Research firm did a survey that they do every month, and they asked people, are jobs plentiful in your area? And whereas 42% said they were at the start of the year, 50% said they are now, reflecting again that this economy is just coming back enormously, and this is all in advance of the tax cut. And it's in anticipation of the tax cut, and it's also a response to Trump's deregulatory policies, that is, freeing business to hire people. They don't have to worry that the EPA is going to close them down. They don't have to worry that the coal plants will be shut down and utility rates will double, driving their cost projections crazy. They don't have to worry about China undercutting the price by devaluing its currency. They don't have to worry that the Greens will come in and disrupt their entire operation. Trump has really created a positive environment for business, and it really shows. Now, it looks to me at this point as if Trump is going to issue an executive order ending the requirement that people buy health insurance. Now, that's in the statute. It's the law. He can't just issue an order saying disregard the law. But he found a loophole. He is very good at that. The law says that there is an exemption for hardship for Americans who have a hardship in buying the health insurance. And among the things are they switch jobs, or they're going through a divorce, or they're in bankruptcy, or stuff like that. And the decision as to what qualifies for hardship is left to the administration. So Trump is going to basically say everybody has a hardship, and will exempt everybody. So you know that line on the 1040 form where it says, do you have health insurance? Well, they're going to let you leave it blank. And Americans will no longer be fined $3.5 billion a year. 600,000 people, 6 million people had to pay $3 billion in fines for not having health insurance. Now that will be gone. A very, very good step. And that's the end of Obamacare. You don't need anything more. Once you repeal that mandate, young, healthy people who normally would not buy insurance, but are only doing it because their arms are being twisted by the law, will stop buying it. And that means the pool that insured under Obamacare will get older and sicker, and the premiums will have to go higher, the deductibles will have to go higher, and fewer people will buy it, except those that are very old and very sick. And that will set in motion this vicious cycle. And insurance companies will drop out of Obamacare, and the whole thing is going to come crashing down. Now, what about the poor people that needed the insurance? Well, there are elements that we'll keep. I'm sure we're going to keep, for example, the assigned risk pool, where if you are too sick and your bills are too high for normal insurance to pay for it, the government will pay your bills as part of the Medicare program. There are 132,000 people in America now who are getting that assistance, and I think that'll expand and continue. But it won't be used as an excuse to socialize the entire medical industry, which is what Obama's really doing now.
Dick Angel Robin Brewer asks, when will he sign it?
The executive order, I think, in the next few days.
And Suzanne Bugby asks, what do you think will happen in the Virginia gubernatorial race?
Oh, you're pinning me down, Suzanne.
Oh.
The race is tonight. I don't know. The polls are all over the place, but I like Ed Gillespie a lot. He's a great guy, and I think Trump's agenda is a fairly compelling one. So I hope the Republicans win, but not going to make a call on it. It's very hard for me to predict the outcome of elections when I'm not running the campaign because I don't know all the details. I don't know all the information, and I can't send in what I think are the right moves, much less be sure they're followed. When I am heavily involved in a campaign, like with the Trump campaign, I can make a call and I can feel quite confident of it, but I'm not working in Virginia.
And Anna Teal Strange asks, will the tax reform bill pass the Senate?
I think it will. It still is iffy. It's hard to tell the difference between a stubborn line in the sand negative opinion like McCain has from bargaining, from saying, I want this, and I might not support it unless you do it, but I'm not saying I won't. I just want this bill to get a little bit better, more to my liking. There are 3 or 4 senators that wanted to be more generous to middle-income families by increasing the exemption, the refundable tax credit for children. There are other senators that wanted to repeal Obamacare, but I think the Trump executive order may take care of it. There are some who are worried about the deficit, but there are other revenue sources there, particularly the exemption, the requirement to buy Obamacare. Eliminating that frees $500 billion a year. So I think on balance the negotiations will work out. The important thing now is I think it'll pass the House, which is a very important first step. Now, Donna Brazil's book is out, and we've been talking about that the last couple of days, and all of Washington is buzzing about it. And I believe that it exposes a fundamental fault line that runs through the Democratic Party between those who talk about the economy and those who talk about social issues. Brazil was always an economy-first person. So was Obama. So was Bill Clinton. On the other hand, Mondale, Dukakis, Kerry, and Hillary really put social issues first. Women and girls, equal pay, abortion, all of that stuff. And the blue-collar Democrats who vote for the Democratic Party because of its concern about wages and working conditions and hours and incomes were getting increasingly disenchanted with the party because all it seemed to want to do would be to bring in illegal immigrants and protect the GBST community, LGBT community,
LGBT
gays, and that increasingly frustrated them. And I think that was really the cause of their defeat. And Brazil's book talks about that fault line, and that is a fault line that I believe will plague the Democratic Party for the next decade. Because the more you have that, the more the social types are going to push the idea of having or that being the main orientation of the party. And then the more voters will leave it, and the party will move to the left. And I told you the history that after Carter was defeated by Reagan, for the next 8 years, the Democrats nominated liberals who could never win. And after Thatcher was defeated by Blair, the Labour Party, after Thatcher defeated Callahan to become the Prime Minister, The next 12 years of Labor Party candidates were also too far left to be elected until Tony Blair brought them back to sense and Bill Clinton brought the Democrats back to sense. And that's what I predict is going to happen with the Democratic Party. Now, this video, as all of them, is sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. And yesterday I explained something, and I'm not sure everybody got it, and I just want to summarize it. The dollar is going to be replaced by the yuan as the global currency, the Chinese currency. Not all across the globe, but in significant parts of it. Now, already the dollar is not used in 30% of international transactions. And China, Russia, Brazil, India, BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, and Iran are pushing the substitution of the yuan for the dollar. Now, the obstacle in that had been that what can anyone do with the Chinese currency? You can't spend it. It's not convertible. You go up to a money-changing thing and you say, here are 100 yuan. They'll look at you and say, what are you giving me this for, wallpaper? We can't trade it in for dollars. But now the Bank of China is saying we will trade it in for gold. That's something the U.S. won't do. Roosevelt barred that in 1933. You can't bring a dollar into the Federal Reserve and get gold for it, but you can bring a yuan into the Bank of China and get gold for it. That is going to create a huge increase in demand for gold, obviously. And the Patriot Gold Group urges you to get in on the ground floor. Go to patriotgoldgroup.com or call 800 476 5675.
Yes, and I'm posting it on
here. Good. Now, we're really beginning to understand the depths of Trump's revisionary attitude on globalism, and I love it. I love it. I love it. You know, I've been around these EU types for too long, and I helped lead the Brexit campaign, and I'm just delighted at what he's doing. There's a meeting going on in Milan of the G7 health ministers from the top 7 countries in the world, and the U.S. under Trump has been objecting to thing after thing after thing in this agenda that they have set up. They wanted to include climate change, man-made weather, and other disasters in the language. Trump's people said, take that out. U.S. is also refusing a reference to urge countries to engage in international cooperation to implement the Paris Climate Agreement. That has to go. As with the rest of the G7 process, the U.S. didn't engage for months, the Europeans said, and now, just this week at the last minute, they are coming in with an extreme agenda. Yeah, we'll get used to it, guys. We're the United States, and we're not going to be pushed around by your so-called global consensus. Nobody elected you. We're from a democracy. People do elect us, and we pay attention to them. The U.S. is also against defining sexual and reproductive health as a right, saying that in no case should abortion be promoted as a method of family planning or sexual or reproductive health care. The U.S. is also opposed to the push for the right to universal health care in all countries. And the question is whether the chair will decide to call out the United States for blocking their consensus or go along and try to compromise. I hope they call us out. That's a fight. That's a confrontation I want.
Dick, we have a great question from Adam Cole. He wants to know, in your opinion, is the Republican Party in danger of losing the House or Senate in 2018? What does the polling indicate? And aren't incumbent presidents used to losing at least one if they have full control the year they get elected?
Well, that nostrum that the governing party always loses didn't happen in 2006. No, 2002. When Bush controlled the White House, but the Republicans gained. But in other years, it has happened, and it's too early to predict what's going to happen. The current ballot that says generically, who would you prefer, a Democrat or a Republican, shows a decided edge for a Democrat. But wait till the tax cut gets passed. I think that could change a lot of different things. Now, the NFL is finally getting its comeuppance in the new tax bill. The legislators have prohibited the use of tax-exempt municipal bonds to build sports arenas. Got that? They can't get a new stadium, football, baseball, anything, paid for by tax-exempt bonds, with the taxpayers footing the bill. The feds won't allow it anymore. And boy, that knocks the NFL into a cocked hat. And it couldn't happen to better guys right now. Now, another addendum to this horrible Texas shooting. Do you realize that the Air Force should have stopped him from getting a gun under current laws, under current gun controls? Federal law says that Devin P. Kelly should not have gotten a gun because he was arrested and convicted of domestic assault on his wife and his toddler stepson. He cracked the child's skull, believe it or not. And they should have stopped Kelly from legally purchasing a gun by entering that on his papers, on his record. But they didn't. So let's enforce the gun control laws we have before the left clamors for new ones. Now, we were asked a question last time about James Comey's brother.
Yes.
Yeah. And the deal here is that Comey's brother has some linkages to some Clinton operations, but I don't think they're deep enough to really make much of it. The deepest one is that James Comey's brother, Peter Comey, works at DLI Piper law firm in Washington, which represents the Clinton Foundation and other Clinton interests. But I don't think that's enough to really disqualify Comey.
And do you have anything more before we close out? Well, we have a couple of shout-outs and then the selfie of the day.
Okay.
So
I'm sorry, guys. I have to leave at 4:30. I have a speech to give at 6:30 in Manhattan, so I'm sorry to cut this a little short.
But Jennifer Dunstall-Hurltz wrote in, "You are truly an amazing speaker. I watched a speech/book promotion that you were speaking at a few weeks ago and was so intrigued. I've never been into politics until Trump ran for POTUS. You have taught me a lot. Many, many thanks."
Oh, thank you.
And Carla Webb, she wrote in for a book plate, and she said, "I've been following you since seeing you guest on several shows on Newsmax. I'm so tickled you developed your Facebook shows. I never miss a Lunch Alert or the Deep Six State. And rewatch many episodes because there is so much information. I have your book Rogue Spooks and would love to have a book plate for it. Thanks and keep up the super work. I dropped my satellite and watch only you. Who needs anything else?"
What's her name?
Her name is Carla Webb.
Carla, get a life.
Oh, no. And we have our
Thank
selfie
you.
of the day.
You're very sweet, Carla. Okay, selfie of the day, shout out.
We
Is
already
this
did
her
the
to
shout
Carla
out.
Webb?
We did the shout out.
Same person?
Nope,
No.
with the selfie of the day.
Selfie of the day, Richard Riehl, R-I-E-H-L.
Yes.
Thank you for sending in a photo of yourself holding up a copy of that wonderful book, Rogue Spooks. Well, thank you. I just want to leave you with the thought that this Uranium One scandal is going to overtake the Russian meddling scandal. And instead of destroying the Republican Party and Donald Trump, it's going to destroy the Democratic Party and the Clintons. Thanks for watching.